Hello, today we are going to look at parallel and perpendicular lines. This one is a concept under the equations of straight line. It is studied under the equations of straight line. So we are going to look at what are parallel lines, how do you know that certain lines are parallel, and what are these perpendicular lines, how do you know that certain lines are perpendicular to one another. Now, when you talk about parallel and perpendicular lines, so first of all, let us look at what are parallel lines. Now, take a Cartesian plane, xy. Now, have first line as line 1, then the second line as line 2. So, the gradient of line 1 will be known as m1, the gradient of line 2 is m2. Now, line 1 is only parallel to line 2 if and only if the gradient of these two lines are equal. Line L1 is parallel to line L2 if and only if M1 equals to M2. These two lines, their gradients must be the same for them to be parallel. For example, are the pairs of equations below parallel or not? The first pair, the first equation is y is equals to half x plus 7. The second equation, y is equals to half x minus 20. Now remember, the equation of a line is y equals to mx plus c, where m is the gradient and the coefficient of x. So you can see that m1 is a half and m2 is a half. So since m1 and m2 are equal, then you say that these two lines, they are parallel to one another. Another example, have an equation 2x plus 3y minus 8 equals to 0. Another equation, 21 minus 4x minus 6y equals to 0. Now, rearranging these equations so that they conform to the equation of a line, y is equals to mx plus c. The first one becomes y is equals to negative 2 over 3x plus 8 over 3. The second one becomes y is equals to negative 2 over 3x plus 7 over 2. So it means that m1 is negative 2 over 3, m2 is also negative 2 over 3. So since these two gradients are equal, we say that they are parallel to each other. They are parallel to one another. Those two lines are parallel. Now let us look at the next concept, which is perpendicular lines. How do you know that certain lines are perpendicular? Perpendicular lines are basically lines that join at an angle of 90 degrees. When they meet, they create an angle of 90 degrees. So we still use a Cartesian plane with a line 1 and a line 2. So these two lines, they are perpendicular to one another if line 1 has a gradient of m1 and line 2 has a gradient of m2. Then line 1 is perpendicular to line 2 if and only if line 1 is perpendicular to line 2 if and only if it is a condition that must be met. If that condition is not met, then the two lines will not be perpendicular. So they are perpendicular if we take the gradient of the first line multiplied by the gradient of the second line, you must get negative 1. If we find the product of those two gradients and it is not negative 1, then the two lines are not perpendicular. For example, are the pairs of equations below perpendicular or not? The first pair, the first equation is y is equals to 5x plus 1. The second equation is y is equals to negative 1 over 5x plus 2. Now you can establish that for the first line, the gradient is 5. The second line, the gradient is negative 5, 1 over 5. So take these two gradients and multiply them so that when you multiply, you'll get negative 1. So the fact that you've gotten negative 1, it means we are in agreement with our condition. So it means that these two lines, they are perpendicular. We have another pair of equations. Y is equals to negative 3 over 4x minus 2. The second one, y is equals to negative 4 over 3x plus 5. So in the first pair, In the first equation, you can see that the gradient is negative 3 over 4. The second one, the gradient is negative 4 over 3. So multiply m1 times m2 is supposed to give us negative 1. But when you do this, you find that m1 times m2 is not equal to negative 1. That's why you have cancelled the equal sign. It is not equal to negative 1. So since it is not equal to negative 1, we say that they are not perpendicular. When you multiply this one, you will get 1. You will get 16 over 9. Now, 16 over 9 is not equal to negative 1. So you say they are not perpendicular. Now, we go ahead and look at a question that can help us understand a concept on perpendicular and parallel lines. Now, the question goes, a line L passes through negative 2, 3 and negative 1, 6. So, and it is perpendicular to a line P at the point negative 1, 6. So, the first bit of the question requires to find the equation of L. Now, for us to find the equation of L presented with the 2 points, the first thing for us to do is to find the gradient. And gradient is basically change in y over change in x, which translates to 3. So the gradient of the line L is 3. Now we are going to take a point on that line L and use it with any of the above presented 2 points to find the gradient. So change in y over change in x equals to the gradient, which equals to 3. So cross multiply, and you find that y minus 3 equals to 3 into brackets x plus 3. You simplify, you get that y minus 3 equals to 3x plus 9. So it means that you add 3 both sides, and you find that y equals to 3x plus 12. So that is the equation of line L. Now, part B of the question, find the equation of P. How do you find the equation of P? From the question, they say that P is perpendicular to line L. So, since P is perpendicular to line L, we have already established that the first gradient, the gradient M1 is 3. So, since M1 is 3 and these two lines are perpendicular, it means that if we take M1 multiplied by M2, you'll get negative 1. So M1 is 3 multiplied by M2 equals negative 1. So divide 3 both sides and find that M2 equals negative a third. So it means that the gradient of the second line is a third. So since we've been presented with the gradient of the second line and a point which is negative 1, 6, then we are going to take a point xy on the line and find its gradient. So gradient is going to be change in y, that is y minus 6, over change in x, that is x minus 1. And this one should give us the gradient, which is a negative a third. You cross multiply, you end up with 3 into bracket y minus 6 equals to negative 1 into bracket x plus 1. So this one simplifies to 3y minus 18 equals negative x minus 1, which further simplifies to y equals to negative a third x. So you can see negative a third is the gradient, and you found the gradient there. Negative a third x plus 17 over 3. So that is the question of that line, second line, P. Part C of the question. Another line Q is parallel to L and passes through 1, 2. So find its equation. Now, we established that for two lines to be parallel, their gradients must be equal. So M1 equals to M2, which is equals to 3. Because line L, the gradient is 3. So it means that line Q, also the gradient is 3. Now we are going to take a point on the line and find its gradient, that is xy. So we find the change in change in y, that is y minus 2 over change in x, x minus 1. And this one should give us the gradient, which is 3. So when you cross multiply, you find that y minus 2 equals to 3 into bracket x minus 1. And when you do that, you find that y minus 2 equals to 3x minus 3. So add 2 both sides and you find that y equals to 3x minus 1. So that is the question of that line Q. So if you have mastered the concept of parallel lines and perpendicular lines, it is easy to tackle these questions comfortably. Now, we are going to be looking into more and more questions in our subsequent videos. So far, so good. Thank you for watching and learning. You can like and subscribe to my social media handles: YouTube, Ombisi Online Math, Facebook, Ombisi Online Math. May you be blessed.